Captions. Okay, so we're gonna talk about cloud today. And let's turn this. Yes, Fonzo. Hi, Fonzo. How are you? So chapter 6 notes. Chapter 6 is somewhat short. A lot of screenshot in chapter 6. So this chapter, I wanted to kind of keep it by itself because it doesn't really, it's kind of standing out on its own. But I wanted to take this opportunity to show you how to set up an instance on cloud that will be useful for your job. And then kind of how to monitor it. We're not going to be able to use a lot of the tools with it. You can if you want to run some shell script, but I don't want to violate some of their agreements because it's a free tier that we're using, right? If it's your, if you subscribe and if it's your machine, you can probably attack your, you can assess and attack your VM on it, but so I'll show you how you can publicly connect to it. It's always useful to learn how to do it, especially Azure for Microsoft, because a lot of companies use it. So this week we're going to talk about cloud computing. And so basically it is just a type of services that you using someone else's network, someone else's servers and devices. Okay. And it is flexible. I think cloud is predominant in the IT industry. So there's no way that you can go about your job not knowing cloud. There is a class that's already been approved. It's Cloud Plus, CompTIA certification. It's part of IT project management and it's part of cloud administration, which I never finished, but I will work on it this semester. And it has AWS, Azure, and a few general things like CIS41A for Security Plus and 25 and 1A. Okay, kind of very much similar to that, but it's beneficial if you know cloud for sure. All right. So for the first question, it asks you to define cloud computing. You can find the definition on the first page. So basically, it's any computing services that's delivered to customer over the network. And they would use large data centers around the world. And so when you're connecting to AWS or Microsoft, it would be based on your region, where you're connecting from. And they can detect that from your network traffic. So, and you can also select, right? So for example, if I'm an enterprise and I'm all around the world, I would be able to capitalize on cloud in different parts of the world because big cloud or technology company like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, or Amazon Web Services, they have, and other companies, of course, they host from everywhere, Africa, Europe, Asia. So they have data centers everywhere. So basically you're renting storage space on servers and sometimes the services on those things. So the common ones that you see in the market, number one is or both kind of tie, is your Amazon Web Service, which is AWS, Microsoft Azure. That's very common, right? And then you got the Google G Suite. So when you're using like, docs and I don't know, presentation and other things on Google, basically you're using a public cloud, right? So Google provide free services for many people and also their subscription. And then Microsoft Office 365, it's proprietary, where you have to pay for subscription and you can get it free through the school license. So in a way, what we see is we are mostly in touch with cloud everywhere, right? Just like how we're in touch with AI everywhere. We're just not aware of it. Okay, so let's define some of the services, and you might need to know this for other certifications in addition to this one. Okay, so let's go back to the notes real quick. So these are called the models. These are service models. So software as a service. This is where a company would have the complete application built and maintained by the service provider. Most of the major companies like Microsoft and Amazon, they both do this, or even Google. Okay, Google is more on the software side compared to infrastructure. So software as a service, you see this on Google a lot, right? So let's say that I'm interested in making a financial software for my company. I would work with the service provider, and they basically help you with the building the application and maintaining it. And so with that, the contract will be based on the level of maintenance that they do here. That's going to address the security area as well. Okay. So it's going to run in the infrastructure, and it's operated by the service provider as they own those racks and systems. So some of the example that you see is Office 365. You see some company, they use Gmail as their company email, right? That is a form of software as a service where Gmail becomes the company, you know, they have some contribution or pay for some of that, where their employees have access to additional features and storage on Gmail. Infrastructure as a service, this is very common in our world. Like basically most of the companies that you work for, they would either have a hybrid. So for example, RCCD has this. Customer would use infrastructure to design and implement services. So for example, I can add databases. I can have database servers, application servers, or even virtual machines as part of the infrastructure. So basically, you're taking your network and you're putting it on someone else's systems. That's what it is, right? And so I don't have the equipment, but I can get someone else's equipment or lease it. So I'm using their data center, and I will put my servers on there. So some of that is your responsibility. Most of it is you are going to be controlling and upgrading your software and OS. Okay, so you manage the license. So EC2, so today we're going to use something very close to EC2 AWS on Azure. I chose Azure not because it's Microsoft, right? And it's because it's free and you don't have to put in the credit card. AWS, you have to put in the credit card even though they don't charge you. Okay. Now, platform as a service, this is common. So it's very similar to the others, but what it does is it operates on a fully managed configurable application. So they configure and they manage your app. And you can choose whatever that will work for your company, whether it's Python, Ruby, Node.js, PHP, and Java. Okay. Java, normally you see this with Android SDK, and then Python's cross-platform. Ruby is very common as well. Okay, so you can just basically run the code and then it's managed, and without having to manage the application server. Okay, which is nice. And then you have function as a service. This is somewhat kind of rare. But you do see this now with automation. So basically you have these functions that's written, and it's just only to execute that instead of a complete program or script. This is also used in analytics a lot. So Amazon Lambda is one of the service. So here are the type of clouds. So let's come back to the question now. So design code, when they're using Adobe Creative Cloud, this is Adobe product. And that allows you to edit pictures, images, videos, documents, e-sign, all kinds of things. Depending on if you go with the pro tier, there's different tier. So basically you're using software that's hosted elsewhere. So that will be software as a service. Now, the cloud models that the customer can retain controls and maintenance and upgrade, that's going to be infrastructure. Think about your network and what you need to do as management is if you're using someone else's space, it's the same thing. It's kind of like leasing an office space. You still have to have furniture. You have to buy your furniture. You have to buy your equipment, or you have to have your people to operate your business. So infrastructure is like that. You're just renting the space. Yeah. So you don't have to maintain some of the hardware part, but focusing on maintaining your network. That's what it's saying. Acme wants to release a cloud to lease cloud service to run its financial monitoring software. What type of cloud service model should Acme select? So they can use this specifically as a platform. And platform, the cloud company is going to maintain the majority of it. But it also depends on the tier and your contract. So you have to read what that contract requires. But mostly in general, that's what we see for PaaS. So when you go to these conventions, right? Like I go to IoT conventions, security conventions, all you see is cloud company. Every booth, somebody is selling cloud, somebody is selling service. And then used to be that they are selling like, switches, routers, server racks, but they're not making money in that because companies already have that outfitted. So they just ended up selling service for the switches, the routers, and the server racks. I remember when clouds start becoming, right? We've used it for a long time, but they start coining the term. People were like, they didn't know what it was, so there was a lot of talk about it. And then security cloud, I think it's still kind of new for the security area, because we started to see a lot more threats on the cloud, especially for the areas. We'll talk about the specific tools. Okay, and then we talked about the function as a service. This is a model that use is only going to be the functions that's written. So instead of a complete program, which takes time to beta and develop and test, right? So in an agile environment where you build and test at the same time, it is better to run things as functions, because we might not need the complete application. We just need something to be executed, right? So you see function as a service quite a bit. So in the deployment for the hybrid model, what you have is you want to have a mix, okay? You might have some public cloud and you might have some private cloud. Public allows your customer to access this freely. And then hybrid cloud could be for your employee. Most companies choose this model, okay? Because this type of cloud is flexible. Now, public cloud is what you see in Google Drive, your G Suite, that's public cloud, where it's freely available to the public to a certain extent, right? Storage becomes an issue, like YouTube. When I put my videos on YouTube and use it as a storage area for my videos, right? That is a form of public cloud, but they have to maintain it and storage is very pricey. So now they have to work in the subscription tier and so on. So make sure we know the difference between your public and community. So community is a way that you have members, right? It could be free, but you would, let's say that I have a community to share, articles, right? You see a lot of this in scientific area, like for, researchers, academia. So they can have access to, peer review articles and so on. And you have to subscribe, even though you don't have to pay. Sometimes you have to pay like a fee where they process it because they have to maintain the cloud. A lot of that fee comes into the storage maintenance. Private is you are the person that's gonna own or use that service, right? Now lately I started to see company sharing, because it can become very pricey when you're having private. So the government has a lot of private cloud because they have the money to, right? Large companies, they do, but when you have small businesses, sometimes it's harder to pay for that. You can pay based on how much you use. Some months you have more, some months you have less, and so that's elasticity. But in a sense where sometimes if I have a partner in my company, I can actually share some of that cost, right? So in the hybrid area, The equipment is maintained by the service provider, but you provision it. And we are going to provision some of it today, even though we're using the free tier, right? But if you subscribe to it, it becomes your private cloud. And then they can also lease you an actual rack, right? Let's say that I want some of it maintained by AWS, but I want some of it at my local company. So they would be able to ship you the rack and the equipment, and you would have the internal IT people maintain some of it, right? So AWS offers a thing called AWS Outposts, right? They have all kinds of products. So as you can see, right, they mass market their things, and it is cheaper than most, kind of like where you go. I would go to Amazon to search for a product first before I look at other stores. So it's very much like that with cloud as well. So here is our area, right? So what's considered part of security operation? As availability is one of the area that we have to address outside of protecting data and the confidentiality and the integrity of the data, we have to look at the responsibility horizon, right? So IaaS, which is what we mostly see, this is our responsibility. The hardware part is the company. For the PaaS, right, they manage most of it. We just need to make sure we protect integrity and confidentiality in the data and how we move data, okay? And then also, and whether our data is going to be this. So for the SaaS, they mostly manage most of it, right? There's some liability in this area. It also depends on if you have a certain incident. So in the fine print, it will state the condition of the incidents, right? So if you have internal people, like one of your IT person circumventing the system and exploiting the data, then that's a different story. Okay, it's not their fault. Any question? Okay, so that means that for our hybrid cloud, we're going to use technology that unifies different cloud offerings because it's a mix into one single coherent platform. So we have to use some form of agent, and also we'll talk about the agent, and we'll talk about, you know, a software tools that's going to allow you to manage. So from the security side, if you have hybrid cloud, just keep in mind that you do have different products that is combined. You have different requirements, especially compliance, okay? And then besides just what your company objectives would be. Now, for the operating environment for the cloud, for the customer, it is required that we divide the responsibility between one or more service providers and the customer's security teams. So normally you would see the contract that is subdivided, sometimes 75% and 25% on the service provider. So when I'm looking at IaaS, sometimes that is the case. 75% customer, 25% service provider. Or when I look at PaaS, 95% service provider, 5% customer. So it really depends on the type of cloud that you're using and also the requirements that would fit into your company. So customizing your requirements with the cloud products is also depends on that. We are going to be able to see how we're going to secure it. So it is a shared responsibility. Back in the day, I used to hear people say, oh, I'll just put it in the cloud and make it a share, make it a transfer liability. Yeah, you only transfer that risk for the hardware size if it's infrastructure, right? Or if you want it like a PaaS, platform as a service, you transfer most of that risk, but you do own some of that, some of the smaller risk or some of the different type of risk, okay? So we have to really look at the cloud model when we do risk assessment in your area for analysts. Now you hear the term DevOps a lot. Everybody talks about DevOps in cybersecurity and IT, right? This is a way that you can unify or basically create a uniform process between development and operation. This is a very difficult area for many companies, is because production system needs to be active and this is why we don't address bugs as fast as we can. So if you have in-house applications that are built, like let's say I have a team that create my apps and I wanted to be able to use it subsequently or concurrently. What happens is you have to use an agile approach. So the other model, when you get into management, they talk about this all the time, in that when you're using a waterfall model, traditionally is that we build software, we test it, and then if it's good, then we release it, okay? Or we put it in production. And this is what you see with games, right? With all the apps that's out there. Most of the time, developer test it, it's good, they beta test it with a group of people, oh, it's great, or they fix some of the bugs, and then they test it again. And once it's good, it's good to go. The agile approach is that you're going to test as you go. So it's done in sub stages where, they have milestones. So they would test this part of the app. The other team tests another part of the app as they build together, like the entire app. And they would be able to finish quicker. So this is a way that we can implement testing and operation releases at the same time, right? And some of that is a collaborative side. Now, the risk in this is sometimes, right, you weight the risk in if you don't do this, and if you do this, what's going to happen on the security side, right? Because we have to make it into production, and it might not be fully ready to go, but it will be somewhat ready to go. Okay. So I used to hate deployment day when I was the manager or administrator, because even if you test things on deployment day, when it rolls for production, there's always something wrong, right? We expect within the 48 hours, something's wrong, something is down, somebody couldn't access something. So, because even through some testing, you still can't expect the real environment. So you can sandbox it every day and test it but you have to look at the scale and how the capacity would be. So analyst plays a very important role in this. So when you're looking at like system analysts and some of those analysts, right, outside of just the security area, right, we look at DevOps and we have to say, what is the expected objective, and then how are we going to achieve a certain goal for the outcome? And we have to meet that with data. Okay. All right. Okay. So DevOps will come up on other certifications as well, because it's now very common. So the traditional way, like I said before, is that we separated everything, and that's the disadvantages. Okay, it's wasteful, it's not cohesive, there's a lot of operation issues. Now, what we're seeing through the DevOps approach is that we're going to see infrastructure as code. Make sure you know this for CISA. They will ask you about this. This is a way that you automate and manage infrastructure services that are deprovisioned, things that you don't use anymore. And you can do that through code. Everything that we do now is through Python scripting or shell script, okay? So you can use PowerShell on the Microsoft side, or on Linux, you use shell script, and you can also implement Python scripting, okay? And I'm gonna show you that feature on Azure today, where you can automate like the check. It's gonna basically rerun that script every single time in the back. So I can check for performance, maintenance, all of those things, instead of having the human doing that all the time. And that simplified the process for us. Plus, it's not wasteful, right? Like we can use our knowledge and skill towards other things. And that's important. And hence you see this with AI now, right? So the advantage of this is you can reuse it all the time in different parts of the cloud or network. And it also reduces errors, because when you reconfigure, sometimes you got something, and that's gonna be difficult, right? To really apply for production. Speed. So the benefits are there. So DevOps is definitely a really good approach that a lot of companies are implementing now or before too. The CIS 40, there's a 41, there's a one after. So the B, I think, is for the healthcare cybersecurity after this one. And then it's the D, right, is the one that's the advanced. Advanced actually look at this area more, right? You work with the infrastructure that works with DevOps. So when we're looking at DevOps, it encompasses everything, like your database, authentication, the whole works. And you have to kind of make sure that you build out the process and development for that. So from the security side, we got to tie in all the pieces and looking at how CIA works with that, right? Okay. Yeah, I actually articulated that with Cal State San Bernardino because it's one of the capstone class for the bachelor program. When I talked to, I've been trying to launch it forever. We had it open once and we had to cancel it. I will see if I can put it in the books. We'll see. I can tell you that I can propose the schedule, and then they will go through the approval process. Right now, they're really talking about enrollment numbers. So, they're offering the classes that's going to hit enrollment. And then, but if the class that the student needs to finish their certificate or the degree, I can offer it, like this one. Okay. All right. So let's talk about other areas of security, like APIs. So this is really popular when we talked about other tools before. You know that most of the tools that you have used in Cali have APIs, like Nmap has API, right? Shodan has API. So one of the things when you sign up for these APIs is you go to their website, you create an account, they track who uses the API. Did you know that you can also use Google Map API, right? Google offers the map capability. You know how when you search for a business, for example, I'm looking for a restaurant and I put that, I'm looking for, let's say, sushi restaurant. And it's plugging in all of these little map symbol of the location, right? Basically, it's pulling the data for all the nearby, and then it's going to pinpoint based on geolocation. Well, you can do some of that through the API. You can tie in the geolocation of Google Map, right? It's called Gmap, and then be able to integrate that with your app. This is why you see some app has it, right? So in security, it's the same thing. We use a lot of applications, for example, Burp Suite, right? Burp Suite has API to scan. But we want to integrate that with other applications. Therefore, we would use API. It's application program interface. It's the way that we can interface one program with the next. So you would need keys because it accesses possibly sensitive data. So encryption keys is very important, or sometimes API keys. API keys are just generated values. And if you ever use Shodan, you subscribe, and then if you click on the API, it gives you a key. Most company that offers API products, right? They track this key, who's using what. Now for us, the key is important, right? So I did a video where I show how to use Shodan with my keys. And one of the students, she mentioned that, you're showing your key to the world, right? Through YouTube video. So I have to disable my key, right? So you can actually disable your key if that key is no longer used. You should, because if you leave it laying around, what's going to happen is it falls in the wrong hand. They can impersonate you, and then they can interact with that API and be able to use it, just like how you use it, just like how people use your email or anything else. right? So make sure that you limit exposure of APIs. Make sure that you secure this. If you're storing it on your server, make sure that you protect it. So permission control there. Use different API keys for different user. I've actually audited a company that used one API key for everyone. That's a no-no, right? Because it's harder to track who's doing what. So you can create user accounts and assign it to the API keys, especially when it's related to different application and privileges. So services and applications. Make sure that you associates rights. So privileges, talk about that here. Don't send keys over an encrypted channel. So normally now they're really good at giving you the keys through encryption, web encryption, okay? Like TLS. And then also that you remove your code and keys from public servers, and then I normally delete it or disable it when I don't use it. Okay, so that's important. All right, so some of this is here for page 3. It talks about what API is. Most of this you're gonna see with web-based. So authentication, like when you're using your Google account to authenticate to apps, that's API that you're using, right? Auth API. It's actually open auth is what's available. When you're using like open VPN services with your current security software, that's going through an API. So there are a lot of things that we use that has API. Okay, so that answer came from here. Now, when we work with the cloud today, we are going to build it from scratch. So you're not going to have historical information. But this is important for you when you come into a company, because when you look at it, you have to think about like what's been done, right? Is there any kind of violation to the policy? So we would set up rules on the system to really detect what's being violated. But detection, in my opinion, is after the fact, right? So a lot of the time when you audit, you're looking at past events, logs, right? Incidents, things like that. And many of you will operate in that area as an analyst. So when we're dealing with incident, a lot of times going back to the information and the data is good. And so how can you see it? Of course, this is our world, is logs, right? And then when you're trying to fix things or find the tools to fix things, data will tell you. Okay, so as an analyst, you're going to see that when you have security issues, your manager and other specialists, they're going to come to you and they're going to say, I have this problem, right? Can you tell me why? Right? And so you have to really look at the information that's in the system to really see why it is a problem and how to fix that problem. Okay. You might not come up with the solution. You can pass it on to the next level, and then their job, right, as managers, is to be able to make the decision to address that problem. But you would present facts. That's basically what you're doing, to show them what's wrong. Or make recommendation for the tools that they can use. So logging and monitoring is the world of security, right? That can be very dull, but it can be also exciting if we have something happening. Or sometimes people are excited because it's healthy and nothing's wrong. I have a friend that he's like, a good day is when nothing is wrong. And I said, that's true. In the IT world, that's true. You're putting out fire as you go. So
Probably very rare to have things.
yeah, so very similar to healthcare, right? Basically, you're putting fire out. Yeah, so so he's telling me like a healthy day is a non-crazy day is nothing happens, right? That's an easy day. But sometimes that can be very still and boring. Okay. So how do I pick the tools to use? It is specific to the cloud product, the type, right? You're going to see, the book only give you 3. So the certification, if you're going for the certification, they don't require you to know all the tools, but they do require you to know the three that's listed at first. Okay. So the tools are used just like any system, because basically it is a network that you're assessing, right? Vulnerability assessment, risk assessment, assets assessment. That's what the analyst does, right? So when I operate as a consultant, 90% of the time I operate as an analyst. And then the consulting part comes in when I actually give them, this is how you fix it, right? This is what you do. This is the tools that you use. This is how, if you don't know, I'll train you, right? So that's the part that comes in. So you detect, you find the issue, and you fix the issue. Okay. So the things that you're gonna see a lot in cloud is unprotected storage, firewall control, sometimes web app. Okay. So they are specific to the risk. So here are the tools that you need to know. Prowler, PackU, and Scout Suite. Most of these, all of them runs on Linux, okay? Because it's written in Python. And then I think some of them, if you look at the documentation, let me pull it up so I can show you. So I put the GitHub because I use this as a way to kind of see the overview if I want to use the tool or not. And then if they have a wiki page or, like like this one has a wiki page, go to the wiki page to kind of see like, the overall or get started, right? So it would give you like the usage. So this is how developer document their GitHub. I tell this to my computer science students all the time. I was like, your README page should have a general description and how to use your app, because I get one sentence on their README page and I'm like, this is no good, right? This is the proper way to, if you ever have to do documentation, this is how it looks like on GitHub. Okay. So see, they show you how to use it, what it's about, and then there's a wiki page. You click it and then it tells you more, right? The differences between this and this. And so you should always read all of this before you start using the tool. Okay, remember I said about tool belt. As you go, you're gonna add each tool to your tool belt. And that's really important in this field. All right. Okay, so it gives you some information about Scout Suite, Prowler. So Prowler mostly, so it's work with AWS and Azure. Okay, it does really well in audit. And it, when you run it, you can run it straight from terminal, which is nice. And it's really good for forensic as well. PackU, this is really good when you're looking at access control, and I'll show you where you can see that. And then if you're running vulnerable Lambda function, remember we talked about AWS Lambda, right? Just function being executed. So this is good for assessing that. So it is very specific to certain area because the program is really designed for that. And then you can also add extension modules. So, they wrote the script and then you can add in. So you have to kind of read on how that would be. Rhino, they're pretty good at maintaining this. So, check their documentation frequently if you plan. So run the updates on it. Basically, that's what I'm telling you. These tools, you got to update it. Okay. So this stuff is mostly Azure and some of it is a mix because we're using Azure today, right? Some of it is for attack and some of it is for, I've used Dumpster Diver before to look for files. So it's also good for like looking for passwords. It's an old tool actually. And then there are other things that you need to run some of this stuff in PowerShell. Some of it you can, but most of these can be run through CLI. So just like FTP, when we did FTP last week, when you install FTP, you know how it gives you the CLI, it says FTP and then you can type bye to exit, right? So Azure has that. AWS has that. You can install the CLI and you can use its commands. It's different than Linux. commands. Some are similar. Okay. So check out the tools. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to use them. You can, right, at your own risk, I'm going to tell you. I didn't want to violate Microsoft stuff, and that becomes more of a problem, even though it's educational purposes. I have to ask their permissions. So I just want to like do login monitoring today, which is okay. All right. Some of the things you're also going to see today is that we need to talk about CASB, which is your cloud access security brokers. This is a set of tools that is mostly addressing the security for the cloud services. Some provider like Azure, they have some of it built in, but you know, they do have third-party recommendation. So your brokers can reside and connect to your systems logically and physically. So basically, it is an enhancement of security, right? They're not required to give you that. Most of the time, I like to use API because it just works better. But you can have the inline one. So if you get the question for inline CASB, it is physical and logical, whereas API is through the software. Okay. All right. So you can pick any of the 3 from the list. So I just chose to pick the 3 from the textbook, which will show up on your certification: Scout Suite, PACU, and Prowler. And these are open source. They are common open source app or tools. Now, when you're using the API, you're going to use them as extension packages. If you read through on how to use it, some of it you can go directly into the CLI for the cloud, like AWS CLI or Azure CLI. So how do I get the CLI to my computer? I just install it, right? But the majority of the time, if you want to use the tools as with API, the API for the tool, you need to install Python, okay? So if you don't have Python 3, you have to install it. This is why I like Linux, because all the new releases of Linux comes equipped with like 3.9 or 3.10 and up. So you don't have to install it. Like Kali, I can speak for the Debian base, I guess. And then in the last question, oh, sorry, did I go too far? Let me bring this up a little bit. It's only 12 questions today. So it asks you to describe the purpose of CASBs, your cloud access security broker, the types of CASB and their configuration requirement. So inline, we know it's physical and logical. It is residing on the connection path between your user and your service provider. It's the middleman. It can be an appliance, right? Like a host system. It can also be a software. So you can have an endpoint agent that routes the request to CASB. So think of it like you need to pass your traffic to the cloud and you need to pass it through the agent first, right? The broker first. And that's how it's going to be able to help you in securing the type of traffic that you're using. So for the inline, you need to configure network and endpoint devices, because as your traffic is being passed through appliances, right? So you got to make sure that you set up your routes and your firewall rules, if you have forwarding with the ports, all of those things. So the network configuration needs to be in place. And also you got to set it up where the request is seen, right, before it's sent. So it needs to go through that system to be able to screen and then forward. For the API, we know that it does not interact directly with the user. It's more on the server side or the system side. And that means that it works directly with the provider or its API. So you don't need to configure. What you can do is you can set up requests, rules, right? Based on your policy. So it will block it based on that. And you will not be able to monitor the user activities there because, you know, it's mostly on the service provider side. They can see some of it, right? But you won't be able to see a lot of it. And then, so you don't have lots and lots of data compared to the other type, okay? So the reporting policy violations is after the fact. So if an incident happens, it's gonna go to your service provider and then you. So it's a little later. So if if I want more control, I would use the inline one, right? If I want the more convenience, I use API. That's it. But give or take, API gives you less data. That's all. And if you want data, you ask the service provider to provide you with data. And they can deny you, actually, right? Depending on the agreement. However, if we're thinking about like, you know, a security incident, you can pull in the legal side and then ask them. Court order will always give you mostly access to things. So make sure we know the difference for certifications and also for practice. Any question? All right, save your work. And you don't have to submit it today, but you need to turn it in by Sunday. And go through the notes again, take a look at some of the details because some of the terminology might be new or different, right? So take a look at it again, okay? All right, so now I think we can move on to the lab. So my intention originally, I wanted to use AWS, right? Like I told you before, because it's just more popular. But Azure is also popular. So once you get a hang of this, AWS have some slight different configuration. What you're doing today is comparable to EC2. I did some of this with my Python class for the networking a while ago. I actually teach them how to put up their instance and then script to the instance. So you can automate some of that with Python script, but through the CLI, right? So you're gonna get, so after this lab, you should know how to put up a virtual machine in Azure, right? If you follow along. And once you do it, it's really easy. And they make it super easy on their dashboard to kind of navigate. I think AWS is a little slightly different in the interface where it's a little challenging. So you are going to need to sign up for an account. It's going to give you 100 hours or $100 in credit. Well, it depends on how you use the dollars, right? If you add in some of the features, it's going to tell you that, oh, it might charge you $1.50 a month from that credit. But we can deallocate it our server or delete it if we no longer use it so they don't charge you your credit, okay? But Azure can be used in a lot of ways. Cloud can be used for robotics, for applications, for AI, for so many things. But for us, I'm going to teach you the virtual machine as infrastructure. That's what we're going to use today. Yeah.
Once per phone number or just dummy?
It texts you in case you lose your password. It's multi-authentication process. So, yeah, you need to have mobile number. And it needs to have an EDU account for the students to sign. So, but you can, if you don't have a student account anymore as an email, you can use your Gmail and sign up for their free tier, which is the same. But it requires a credit card. So what we'll do is we're gonna sign up, right? The process is really easy. You go here, you click start free, and you get the $100 credit. No credit card required. So once you go through the sign up process, right? If you put in your mobile number, it texts you the access code, right? In the case you need to do multi-step authentication or retrieve your password. I have a few accounts. So I'm already logged in. I have one subscription with RCCD that we pay through a grant for IoT. That's supposed to be used with the IoT courses and the Python IoT. So I have the IoT hub, but your dashboard should look something similar to this once you're logged in. Yeah.
Mine's unable to like,
No.
confirm identity.
Able to confirm identity for your university? Well, I didn't do that before. Is that the same? Are you because it's your traffic or your email? I'm trying to get the RCC.
Yeah. it's like when you feel them too, never do it. I can see it from here. Looking for traffic.
Oh. I didn't think, because I've done this in my class many times. And I don't know why it's not able to do that. So hold on. Let's search for the error. I wonder if, because I did this remotely with the students, like on Zoom when I taught the class. I'm wondering if it's, I think it might be the traffic. You notice how it loads that page right away when you click that, it's just unable to identify. It's not even referring to your, or maybe it's your email. To identify university.
Is it only for universities and not community college?
No, it's for community colleges too. Oh, they said you have to request a ticket. That's strange because I've had students that use RCCD EDU account. Like, you know how it says student RCCD.edu? Like last year, and it worked fine. So. What about the free tier? If you're using your personal email. Let's search for. I think this one might require a credit card though. You can try it and let me know. So if you search for like free service, Microsoft Azure, and then you can use your like personal email that you use for other things. See if you can sign up with that. I think this one, it might ask for a credit card number like AWS to hold, but they don't charge you. Right? I'll set up a service ticket with Azure. And then I will, yeah, because this gives you free for 12 months. So I don't know if you might need like to put in a credit card number. I'm sorry. I don't want you to put in a credit card number though, but I will make a service ticket and ask them about your email account. I should chat with them right now. It's a bot anyways though, right? Or maybe it's a real person. So try their free tier. This one is 12 months. And you can always like disable your account when you don't use it. So they have training, like free training on the student side. It's great, right? If you get access to it.
So I'll just put my card information.
Oh, you did.
No, I'm saying I can do it, but like, are we gonna still continue? Like, is everyone else gonna do it, or like, are you guys gonna put a card in or not?
If
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can show you guys, right? We can just do demo, and then if you want to do it, you can put the card in. I'm not gonna make you put the card in, right? We can still answer the questions. You don't have to provide screenshot because as you not do it, but I highly recommend learning Azure because that's if you put that on your resume, it's helpful. However, right, I'm not gonna make you pay for stuff because I really think that this stuff should be free. I'll put in a service ticket and I'll let you know what they say, because sometimes because I think it is student.rccd.edu, the child mail domain, that creates a problem for them because it doesn't resolve it. That's probably why. But we just asked them to fix it. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Man, I was like screenshot and everything, but you know what it looks like there. Okay, so when you go in, the dashboard looks like this. You can go to the quick start, the IoT hub. This is when you want like your devices to talk, send messages on the cloud, and they do have different tier, like 7,000 messages and so on, whatever, for a certain amount. You can set up your database and other things. Kubernetes is very, very popular. So this is always good to kind of learn. If you click on it, you see how they have the training and the units. Sometime when you need to maintain your certifications for certain area, you can actually take the training on AWS and Azure. They have their own certifications too. Okay, for cloud. All right. So for deployment, so what you would need is, it's gonna look like this once you have access. So the free tier is gonna give you US East. Okay, this is where the data center is. Normally when you're accessing from the west, they normally send you to the other side of the United States. You know why? Why am I not accessing at the data center that's closer to me? This is for security reasons. It's because in the case if some kind of environmental impact, like we talked about that before, if we have a risk, let's say if the data center get hit by a storm, right, your data doesn't get impacted. The East Coast customer is going to have the West Coast data center. And that's a normal practice for a lot of the companies. AWS, those, I think, like also Azure, the farther you are out, the more they charge. So you want to be somewhat in the country or in your region. So if it's recommending you like you know, if they have more data center, you have to determine like what is closer to you. And it gives you an estimate on which one you pick. So if I pick, for example, if I pick Europe, what's going to happen is I have to pay for the bandwidth that I'm using from here to Europe. So it's going to charge more. That's why. And the amount of time that I'm using it. So it's very much like you buying, you buying data access on your mobile devices. So if you're using the free tier from Azure as a regular user, not a student user, you have access to Linux and server. On the student side, you're only gonna have access to Gen 1. I saw that. I actually created an account. It took my MBC EDU account, possibly because it's not taking the student RCCP account. So I'll email them. So Windows Server 2016, and it's gonna look like this. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how you can create it. So you start here. If you want to make a virtual machine for practice or whatever, you click this. You see that I already have one tested, right? And then you just click create. And you choose the type of machines that you want. So I can just do Azure, which uses Hyper-V. And then you saw this, right? So I need to put in, and I signed up as a student. So here I am, okay? Because I have another account that's not. And then for my resource group, you can choose. You can make your own resource group where you can type in, create new. Or if you already have resource group, right? You can select it. So we're gonna go here. And then we can say CIS41A. I'm going to call this a little different because I already have one for the test of the lab. So you can name your resource group. So basically, this is just a container that holds everything that's tied to this virtual machine. Because we are going to add in some of the features and some of the things. So it needs to have objects inside the container like this. And so I can create. And then I can name the machine. And I normally like to use the OS name. So we can say CIS41A server 2016, or you can follow the step. I just put down like VM, right? And here is where we select the region. So now I don't want to go to Europe. My browser is listening to me. You can choose. So what if I want to choose US West 3? Okay. Now, in some cases, no, it's like, yeah, so that should be okay.
Professor, if you were to Switzerland, you would have to do compliance with the
yes, the European I forgot the thing. Yeah. But you would only do that if you operate there. Yeah. Oh, it's sorry.
2 days ago, I went on a walk where the sun was setting, it was beautiful. And then it didn't.
Yeah.
I love this sun.
We have, what is that? They call it the atmospheric river. So it keeps pouring water on us right now. So yeah. So you can choose the region, right? Like I said before, if we operate on the west, consider that if we have earthquake or something, your data is housed elsewhere. So you can choose, so we can choose West 3, or I think I have you guys choose East. And then for the next step, what we see here is, we are going, once we name our virtual machine, we're going to select the image, and then it's going to give you, so this is the processor and the memory that you're going to get. Now you pay for what you get, right? It's free, so it's slow. Not bad, actually. If you have nothing in it, it's not too bad. But so after, this is the cost rate that you see here for $10.22 a month. If I only have one virtual machine that I'm paying for, right? If we're not using the free tier. Okay. So we are going to make an account and then set up the password after we pick our image. So we can select different OSs here, right? So we're gonna do a Windows. Now be careful when you selecting these. If you see that it says data center core, it doesn't have a desktop. Okay, it's just command line. Okay, command prompt. So we're going to do this one. Now there are other additions. So I think, you know, if you have limited options, you can't choose, but you can also have Ubuntu server on here and other things. Okay, Windows 10, 11 Pro. So we're gonna select this. And if you are using free, sometimes when you select the ones that are not part of the free tier, it's gonna tell you, right? You're gonna get an error. So it is x84, right? ARM is not supported with this, so it won't work with ARM. ARM is often used in like, you see that in smartphone, mobile devices, IoT devices. So that's the, you know, like Snapdragon chip, stuff like that. All right, so you can also do the discount spot with them, but we're gonna choose. So here, I think the free tier is only gonna give you 1 gig of RAM and then 1 CPU. But as you can see, if you up the CPU, you pay a lot more. Okay, and then you make a user account. Oh, I forgot, I'm not using the computer today. It's been a long morning or night. Student. And then when we just make, this is a long password, so we're gonna need to make a long password. And then we're gonna confirm. Okay, so just after the basic, now, this is what you use to connect to it, because no point in creating a virtual machine if you can't see it. So what we want is we want to be able to use options. So there are a few ways that you can connect to it. You can authenticate via the web, you can SSH, right? Kind of like using PuTTY, or you can do RDP. Normally, when I teach class to student using Windows product, I like to use RDP because it's really easy. So I'm going to choose RDP, which opens up port 3389. This is how you're going to connect it via the public IP. Okay. And then we're going to scroll down. So it tells you that the IP addresses to access your virtual machine is only recommended for testing. Okay. So you can set up your storage as well. So here, if you want, you can just skip all the extra steps and then you can do review or create. Okay. So after we selected the RDP port, we're just going to create the virtual machine. And this is where you're going to be able to set up some of the additional things. Okay. So before we answer the question, let's come back to do this. All right, so it tells you the general subscription information, the default subnet mask, okay, and then the public IP information and some of that. You're gonna see it later on in its general status page anyways. Okay, so if you're happy with all of this, we haven't created alert yet, so we're gonna click create. And it's gonna take like a few minutes. You're gonna see the little pop-up here, right? Same thing with AWS. It's gonna show you like, oh, what's happening, and then when it's done, it's gonna give you an ID for your server, like this. So it tells you deployment in progress. And then after it's ready, it's gonna show the information here. Now, as it's doing this, it's gonna generate a log. I'm gonna show you what that looks like. Okay, so as you can see, right? When I tested the other ones, so as it's doing this, it's gonna say, oh, it generated this, it gives it an IP address, it creates a virtual network, right? This is for the virtual, so this is all the log information. So if you ever need to go and find out like who did what, you would click on logs and it's gonna show all the events that happen to your cloud and also the VMs. Which VMs, because some company, they have like many virtual machines, right? And so you would see that there. Okay, so we can, at this point, what we would see is, we're gonna click on go to resources button, and that's gonna list your virtual machine information. Right here. Okay, so it tells me it's running, right? See how it says Norway East? We can change that, right? We can go back and then undeploy it and then redeploy it again, connection. So what we'll do is we are gonna look at the information, and on the right-hand side, you're gonna see here's my private IP and here's my public IP. Remember that this is used for testing only. So 20.100.201.21. Everybody sees that? Too small?
Class A one, right?
This one.
For the
Mhm,
private.
yeah. And then it also created a VNet. And if you want to configure your VNet, you go here. Now, I don't have any kind of server services enabled yet, right? So this can be tied to a public domain, which I don't have. And then inside the virtual machine, I can also set up like server roles and things. So I don't have this yet. So I can leave that empty. And then the private IP is also a class A. Normally they use the 10 is because it's gonna give you the most. That's why class A gives you the most hosts. Okay, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at the monitoring side. So I'm gonna show you how you can create an alert rule for performance. And this addresses the availability part from our cloud. So a big area that we focus on in cloud is storage. As it costs more, as there's a lot of data, so we want to be able to see that, right? And we can look at also bandwidth as well. So on the left, down. Under the monitoring, these are all the features. So anytime that you need to see logs, you go here. Anytime that you need to fix configuration, you go here. But Azure is really good at giving you this little pop-ups like this to tell you like, oh, well, if you don't have an agent, you should click this, right? And it's gonna take you to the help page where you will be able to troubleshoot following the step. Okay, similar with other cloud products. So I'm gonna go here to make the alert. And I don't have any existing alert. So I'm just gonna, for this virtual machine that is, right? I'm gonna go ahead and create. So at this point, we are at this step. Okay. And then once I select that, I'm gonna select the data disk IOPS. So, and the way that they use this is they show it as a signal. So your rules are like signals. So this is the criteria that you want to put for the system to kind of determine whether it meets the policy or not. Okay, so you can have OS, IOPS, right? Data disk, IOPS. So I'm more interested in how much disk space that it consumes. Or if you're interested in CPU, you can select this. This is for performance. And if you want more, go here. And what this does is it gives you other things, right? And this can be related to your privileges or your system performance, matrix, things like that. So as an analyst, you can have more, but we are going to just select this. Now you have to put in what it's looking for. So I had you select dynamic. That means that it is flexible. It's not exactly at that point. It can go back and forth, right? For the aggregation type, I think I had you guys do. Let me double check. Yeah, we're gonna choose maximum because we're interested in looking at the data that it's using the most. And we can set up the operator and the threshold for high. Because if you don't put in all of these criteria, it's not gonna let you move forward. So here we're gonna do greater than. And then we're interested in high. So if I'm using high disk capacity on my virtual machine, it's gonna notify me. Okay, that's what we want. And you can also set up your dimension on how you want to activate your alert. So this is part of the automation process that what we talked about earlier. Okay. And we can have it set every certain, so I think I had you guys put down for every 30 minutes and then every 15 minutes for look back. Or maybe is it the other way around? It has to be equal. So this is 15 and the other is 30. I got them mix up. Yeah, so loop back period is every half an hour and then it's gonna check every 15 minutes. So if you have it used, the usage is more frequent, I recommend that you check it more frequently. That's it, right? You just set it and the least is 5 minutes, right? And you can go a little bit longer. If now as it checks, sometimes they charge you for this, right? It depends on the type of service, but depending on the rule, that's what I'm saying. So, you know, it really based on what you're trying to meet here for the alert rule. Okay. So if I pay for this regularly for the aggregation, I'm gonna pay 20 cents a month, which is not bad for one virtual machine for this rule. And as you add more, it's gonna increment. Okay, so cost over time, then we wait at the cost. So we're here. We already set that, right? Yeah, and then 26. So for the advanced option, you're gonna expand the view. Okay, before we go next, and then you are going to set up the violation level. So here, we click the arrow. And how you want it to alert. Some people, they want to alert every violation. I think that's too small. So you can choose 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So I have you choose 3. So if it's 3 violations or more, right, it's gonna go notify. And then we can do it. Is it 30 minutes? Oh, okay. Oh yeah, because so there is a quantification in this. You can't choose lower than what you had set here, right? Get it? Because it's like 30 minutes, right? 4 every 2 hours. That's equivalent to this. You have to make it equal or greater than. So, you know, so they already built in a calculator for this. So, you know, if I try to choose 3 every 2 hours, it's less than this. It's not gonna let me, it's not gonna take it, right? So we're gonna make sure that we quantify equivalent to that. And then, so we did that here. We're gonna go next and then next. And then for the severity, you want verbose. Or if you want less details, you can do that. Okay. So at this point, next, and then Now, if you want to add some action group, you remember earlier when we make the virtual machine, it automatically create a group, right, for this. But if you want to add other action group to it, you can. And then you can also control access for the other groups from here, okay, to your VM. And then we're gonna select for the most information, verbose, and then you're gonna give it a name. So, yeah, data diskmax. Thank you. You're a lot faster than I am.
All we're doing is we don't have to keep going back and forth.
And you can add in, you know, max. What is it?
Monitor, hide this,
Monitor. I like to put in description because sometimes, like, if you have a lot of rules, you're not gonna know, right? And then we have that, then we're gonna go next and then review and create, and then it's gonna process. So basically, that's one rule, and we're gonna see some of that later on. Review and create, right? And see, if you want to see the long run from the pricing, you can check that, right? And then click create. Takes like a minute or two. Depending on the network, I think at home, for me, like a few seconds. Okay, so here, right, it tells you the overall, there's nothing. You can also, you know, search through to see if you have any kind of warning and error. So this is a form of logs that you can see for your disk. All right.
Is it like a vulnerability scan type thing?
Basically, it's just setting up the rules for your virtual machine to kind of see that if there's potential performance issue for this one, for this rule. But we can also set it up for like security updates for vulnerability. So it does check that. So yeah, they do have scripts that's added to this. And then you can also add things to here, and then you can also add policies to here, right? So it's all in one interface, and I kind of like it. I think this is a better layout than AWS in my opinion, but you know, people have their preference and also cost preference.
Or something like like what we use, the virtual box?
Yeah,
For the function?
you can set it up this way. I'm gonna show you how you're gonna connect right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so here I give you a little bit of information about the agent. So for the Azure VM agent virtual machine, this allows you to communicate with the controller, which is where the physical system where that virtual machine is hosted, and the network devices. So it's going to use a certain address, right? And that address is then connect to your virtual network, which is then through the agent. So basically it's a rack with a bunch of different companies' virtual machines, but how do they talk to each other, right? Or not talk to each other, talk to other networks. So what they do is they set up virtual networks that have these virtual machines, but it's controlled through a thing called Fabric Controller. And this is where the physical server actually exists, as the Fabric Controller. And it has an actual IP address, right? All systems have, whether it's virtual or physical. And so when you migrate your virtual machines and customize it, what happens is, in order to use agents that are not guests, you will need to configure it. And so here, you know, it tells you that you need to go in and set up your service. And I actually pulled this. So when you click on this option into troubleshoot, it gives you some of the details on how to fix this problem, right? And then you can activate your agent, okay? So let's go back. Okay, so now anytime that you need to go back to your virtual machines, you just click it. We already set up the rules, so we're back here, right? If you want to stop, you just click stop. It actually deallocate and a stop. Some company, they'll charge you still if you deallocate. Some company, they don't. It depends, okay? If you need to restart it, it's here, but it tells me it's running, okay? And then I'm gonna click connect. So we are now gonna choose how we're gonna connect with it, because I want to see what's in the virtual machine and interact with it. It's great that it's there on my cloud, but I want to use it. So this is right now is like it's on your hard drive, right? We want to be able to access it. So when you click RDP, and there's also a way to use Bastion. So you can use just-in-time access. What it does is it's only allowing you access when you need it. So you can set that up. This is using a just-in-time library. I went over this with my security Python class. It's called JIT or JIT, and it uses the API to be able to set up the request as needed. So it's only going to respond based on the request instead of just like opening all the time, right? So for this, I simply use the default address that it gives me, and I'm going to download the RDP. And this is what's nice about Windows RDP. So once it's finished download, you just go here and click open. And it's going to prompt you this. It uses the remote desktop environment, and you click connect. If your things are public, so here you basically, I want to use the local user that I created earlier, the CIS41A student, and set up the admin account, right? So I'm going to go more choices. So as you can see, I have multiple accounts as I manage different stuff. So I'm going to use different account. Keep thinking I'm typing on the keyboard. And student in the lowercase. And then connect. Now you can set up, accounts, users, groups, everything that you need through what's a thing called IAM. That's for access management, interface access management. I know Azure pretty good, so yeah, I like it. Not that because I normally started with Microsoft products, but in general, I think the interface is really good. So this is what it looks like on the inside. You're connected. That's so when you use Practice Lab, this is what it is. Yeah, server VMs on cloud. So they set up, how when they tell you turn on this virtual machine and turn on that other virtual machine. So what that is just they establish they call it a VNet. So a virtual network, and you can accomplish that via a switch or a server, or through Hyper-V. So this is the server desktop. And if you don't use the core, if you use the core, you're only going to see command prompt when you log in. And so I didn't have any kind of user account set up for this server, but it's typical server, you go and it's going to give me so I click no here. And then the server manager is going to pop up asking you to set up the role. Okay. And then if you want to close the session for the RDP, you just click the X. Yeah, so now I can configure the server. So if you want practice, this is a good way to do it, right? Remember 100 credit hours, that gives you 750 regular hours. So that's plenty of time. And if you use the 12-month service, if you put in your credit card, that you have the whole year, and then you just use a different email account. Yeah.
That's the VM?
Yeah.
And it comes with Windows Server?
I chose Windows Server. You can also have, I think the free ones, they give you like 2016 server instead of 2019. And then maybe Ubuntu. If you do the free 12 months, you have more option than the student. Yeah, if you guys can access the student, but I'll ask them. Okay, so now if I want to get rid of it or get out of the session, end the session, it's still running though, okay? So I'm gonna click this, it's telling me, oh, I'm ending the RDP session. Now, RDP is not exactly 100% secure. There's nothing secure. SSH is not secure either. right? It's more secure than RDP. But as you can see, I just need password access. So if they have your password, you're done, right? And your RDP, so your configuration, basically it's going through this port.
So is this just more specific than VirtualBox, which is just free when you download it? Like, hey,
Yeah.
for this service, being able to create those rules, the specifications.
So basically the cloud house the virtual machines, right? And that's only one service. So for the instance, you can have other instances that's not virtual machine, right? Like I can run, FAAS on the same cloud with my virtual machines. You know what I mean? So think of a virtual machine as just, or the cloud as a container of different things that you're gonna use. But when you're creating a virtual machine and you put it on your drive, just think of it like you just put it on someone else's server. That's it. Yeah. All right. So here, we already did this. So when we're gonna come back to the dashboard and click on the virtual machine, we are going to take a look at the agent status. Okay. So I'm gonna come back here and I simply click on the virtual machines. And what you're gonna see is, it's harder to see when it's outside like this. Okay, it's running your agent status. It should be ready. In order to access it, it has to be activated. So as it finalize and deploy your virtual machine, it will tell you that your agent status is ready. And this is the version. So basically it's a software how you will be able to manage your virtual machine, right? And communicate with it. And then it gives you everything else about it on the right-hand side, like the technical configuration on the right-hand side. So it is ready. And if it's not ready, then we can't really connect to it or work with it.
Doesn't Windows Server have that capability as well?
Yeah. So Azure uses, it's basically so when you're doing virtual machines, it's a virtual machine inside a server. You understand?
Yeah.
So your cloud exists in a storage server. So this is a Windows server using Hyper-V to access your virtual machine.
You don't have to pay for the licenses, because it's included with the.
Exactly.
Wow, that's.
And 2016 is kind of older anyway. So they have like 2012 where they don't support anymore, but this is good for testing.
VirtualBox used to allow you to do, Microsoft on there, but I tried to do it recently and they showed that they didn't.
Oh yeah, it can't pull your ISO. You have to go and download it. I have ISO if you need ISO. Yeah, the image file. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I could put virtual machines up here and have students access it to log in, but to manage it, and then they're gonna start charging based on user, because Microsoft is really good at that. Like they will tell you, oh, this is 100 user, it'll be this much, and also how long you use. So when you guys work with the RCC lab where they're using like the NetLab Plus, basically it is a private cloud so they own the equipment and they host it. So all right. Okay, so you saw how it's connected, right? We ended the session. Now we're going to go back to your portal instead of your virtual machine, and then you're going to look at the extension that you're going to use to manage your resources, which could be your VM. Okay. It's really quick, this lab. So I can click on the, here's my portal. And then I'm going to go to the extension and applications. Oh, I know why I didn't have this. So if I added a custom agent earlier, it would have had it. But anyways, so you have none to start. Okay. So it asks you here, it says what extension packages have been provisioned. You can put none because there's none that you provision. Now, if I want to provision, right, I can always click add here and I can add in the agent. So earlier we talked a little bit about this. So if I want the third party, remember the security agent, I can add it here, right? Some of it comes with, you know, with the Windows itself, like this agent for Windows Server monitoring. Okay, so let's add this one so you guys can see that. Oh, I don't have. It's not gonna let me because I don't have the device key for some of these because they're APIs. Hold on 1 second, okay?
And what I remember is that you can make domains within Azure, so it's like it's a SSO for domains pretty much, but you sign into Azure and you have.
Yeah, right here.
Connect to.
If you have a registered domain, you can add your DNS right here. Public DNS. Yeah, and configure your DNS. Basically, that is gonna tie to your public IP. That's it. Really easy. But you know, you gotta register it though, right? So, you know, companies like Azure will do that for you too. So if you ask them, you're like, oh, I want to deploy this domain using, you know, the given public IP. Can I do that? So they say that this is used for testing. And then if you want an actual domain, you know, they can give you a public IP that's tied to your domain. Yeah. And then you can set up authentication stuff on here through IAM, and then you'll be able to do that. It's really nice. I think cloud, you know, should take a lot more credit for what it's doing. I'm trying to see. Yeah, I didn't click on the thing earlier, so we didn't have any additional agent packages. But give me a second. Let me go back to. Let me deploy my other one, so I'll show you the exact ones I'm talking about. This one. This is the one I tested. Okay. So I did the same thing on this one. Right. The only thing is, you know, that little message that you saw in the screenshot, I clicked it because I wanted to add because after the fact, if you don't have the key for it, it's going to ask for it. So when you see that little pop-up, you click it, the arrow, and it's going to it's just automatically do it for you. So here is the package. It doesn't help if I close it. Sorry. So let's zoom in a little bit. So the extension is this. So you can access this on the left side or on the right side. So you're using to answer the question. So we're on number 57, 56 and 57. So the extension package is that provisions, and then we'll click on the packages, okay? So you should provision the monitor Windows agent that allows you to maintain the monitoring process for your virtual machine, for your VM. And then with that, it's also going to do the network watcher extension. So these are the extensions that are built specifically for Azure VM or monitoring.
Go back to the activity, so I can't say it, log after that.
Yeah. You guys need activity logs? So as you see, I just started my virtual machine again. It shows that, right? It started, but for you, if you start installing virtual machine, it's gonna show like 4 things, right? Like you create, it will say create virtual machine, install virtual machine, start virtual machines, and add extension packages. So those are the things. And it will tell you the subscription and who did it. So in this case, I turned off my virtual machine yesterday. I turned it back on. So it shows me that I started it. So this keeps track of all the things that are happening to it in your container. And you notice that I have other resource group, right? So you can also search specifically for a certain resource group and you can filter it. And then there's like a quick insight where it groups the data for you. It's kind of nice. So activity logs is also giving you some details for the system, right? And then,
So click insights, then click enable after. On the left side.
yeah. Insights, I think that's on the bottom. Yeah, under monitoring. So here is where you want your data to be presented a certain way. So I want to look at the performance of my system. So I'm going to click enable. Right?
Just to click edit.
And then you can set your insights. Okay. Let's see. Workspace.
61.
Yeah. Configure insights, workspace configuration tab, and then you're gonna select that and then configure. Sorry, I'm gonna zoom out a little bit because I can't see the rest. I'm wondering if, because I had added the workspace already, it's doing this.
You configure it, just takes you back home.
Yeah, well, because I already configured my default workspace, so it's only showing me my default workspace. But when you first configure it, it's gonna make you select your default workspace. You understand? Yeah, I already created it, so it doesn't let me recreate it. Because I had tested. Yeah,
So this was return to VM portal and click on logs.
yeah. So once you create your workspace, so what we're doing is you are setting up monitoring requirement right now. That's what we're doing, right? So we're gonna go here, right? It's supposed to allow you to set up your queries now. Okay, so how do you want your logs to be tracked or recorded, basically? Okay.
Just to click the security option on the log.
Yeah. And then
And
I
then
think, yes, say it again, click run, right?
It says in the clears window, click security option on the left pane. Under missing security or critical updates, click run.
So let me click that, and then,
Alert will. Hit the plus button.
yeah, I think I scroll down too far. There you go, run. So it's gonna run this script. So I don't have any outstanding issues, you see? within 24 hours, so all the updates are already there. And then,
New alert rule top right,
set up another rule.
puts the all signaling under custom answer. Oh, you passed it, it's in the beginning. Where
Yeah,
there was
right
a
here.
custom, yeah, it's there.
We saw this earlier too. So now we're doing a second rule. And then missing updates, right? Critical security update. So we're gonna select this one.
Mhm.
And then,
And apply.
yeah, 1 second, because it's hidden.
Oh, your screen.
Yeah, because my, let me do this.
This is managed by your organization.
Mhm.
How do you disable that? It's on my personal laptop for some reason. I don't know how RCC got the icon that. Managed by your organization,
Oh, really?
yeah.
For the
how do you-
OS?
No, on Chrome.
Huh.
Really, on my laptop is there, I never allowed access to it.
Oh, maybe because you agreed to access their wireless network?
I don't know, the laptop's always been in my house, I never accessed the network or anything.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Oh, because you're getting licenses from them? Are you using like their Microsoft license or something like that?
maybe that must-
Yeah, if you install product that's managed by them, that's probably why.
it's on my personal email account, I don't know. It's something weird. with
I'll
that.
take a look at it. Yeah, that's really weird. There,
And the threshold value of
Yeah.
3. Where is the threshold value? Oh, there you go.
Yeah. 3,
And then click next for action,
5 minutes, actions, and then,
again, next.
yeah, we don't need to add any kind of groups. And then we have the region next for tags, right?
Yeah, and then it says, enter alert rule name security updates under the details tab.
Yeah, it's not gonna let me. I think I passed it. Previous. Okay, so kind of like before, we just need to put in the name for your rule. So you can set up many rules for it to alert you. I actually have something for this already. It should show the query. Oh. Yeah, it's thinking right now. All right.
We're on number 7.
Yeah. And then take a screenshot. We don't need that. So, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at the virtual machine again, and then you just need to answer the questions. So with this, right, you learn how to. I'm not gonna make another rule because it's probably not gonna let me name it the same. We learn how to create a virtual machines on Azure, right? Using Azure to create virtual machines, and then also create rules to monitor performance, view activity logs. We also learn how to make rules for vulnerability alert, like missing updates. I also want to show you that they do have Windows Defender for Cloud if you want just, so it comes, some stuff you have to pay for, but it does have security component. So what you did with the alert is you using Azure Monitor. That's what it's called. And Azure Monitor basically monitor your infrastructure. That's what you're setting up, right? And then when you click at logs, earlier when we were in here, when we click on the logs, it actually tells you not the activity logs of the VM or the cloud, but it is the logs of the specific virtual machine. So that's two different things. Activity log is about the cloud and log is about the actual instance or the component of your cloud. Okay. And everything that you need for monitoring is in its section right here. And then we also learn how to connect to it after we create the virtual machine using RDP file. So those are the cool things. So the logs here basically allows you to create queries on how you want to filter or view your logs, right? You can save your queries and then reuse it another time. So for us, this is important because simply that we can look at some of the information that we need. So you can create. I actually have some queries already made. And you can also run you can run a script with it, run a command within it. See?
What are some security features like to maintain the availability?
So you can have diagnostic settings set up to be able to monitor performance. We set up alerts for performance earlier with the disk, or you can do that for CPU and RAM. You can also obtain insights. This is on the analytics side after you monitor the performance of the machine. So it gives you the insights feature for analyzing the data based on your system health. There's another cool thing is the metrics, right? So once you set everything up, it's able to parse the data based on your scope and then provide you more details. So I can, I can select like the type of matrix that I want to use. So earlier I had set up like my data disk consume percentage. I can visualize it here, and then I can compare it based on, so statistically it gives you the options to control that here. Okay. So if I'm in the red and it's peaking all the time, and this is live too, it's gonna graph it live for you. You can leave this running to monitor it. I think, and then also network connection monitor for bandwidth. So they're going to use network watcher connection monitor instead of the network basic monitor. They're upgrading. That's what it's saying here. Okay. And so also there's also a cool thing that you can make templates of things so you can reuse it. It's nice. You can do network security group tests on how you connect to the system. So I did, before you connect, I normally do a run test because this allows you to kind of see if you have any kind of connection to that particular cloud instance. You'd be surprised that a lot of people claim that they know cloud, AWS, or Azure, but like when you ask them specific questions, they don't. But I encourage you to like play with it. So, all right. Anything else? We finished really early today. Alfonso's not sticking around.